You almost ignored this message. Something inside you said it could wait. Maybe another hour. Maybe tomorrow. Maybe after life became a little less complicated. But another voice, quieter and somehow stronger, refused to let you move on. It kept whispering that this moment was different. That these words were not finding you by accident. Because somewhere, beyond everything you can currently see, a story has already begun unfolding, and somehow, your name has become the center of it. You have spent so much time wondering if love could truly find you, not just ordinary love. Not temporary affection. Not the kind that arrives loudly only to disappear in silence. You have searched for the kind of love that survives distance. Misunderstandings, impossible timing, and the endless storms life throws into two hearts trying to become one. There were nights when you questioned if that kind of love even existed anymore. Yet every disappointment only prepared you for something you never imagined would happen, because someone has been carrying your name inside their heart longer than you realize. What makes this so unbelievable is not that someone loves you, it is how long they have hidden it. They have smiled while pretending everything was normal. They have spoken ordinary words while their hearts screamed extraordinary feelings. They convinced themselves they could bury what they felt. They tried walking away. They tried distracting themselves. They even believed that forgetting you would eventually become easier. It never did. Instead, every attempt to move forward only pulled them deeper into a truth they could no longer escape. And the day finally arrived when silence became heavier than confession, but you still have no idea what forced everything to change. The signs were there. Maybe you noticed repeating numbers appearing when you least expected them. Maybe songs started speaking directly to your soul. Maybe strangers said something that sounded strangely personal. Maybe memories you thought had faded suddenly returned with incredible clarity. None of it felt connected at first. Until now, because what looked like coincidence was quietly becoming preparation. Every strange feeling. Every unexpected delay. Every closed door. Every unanswered prayer. They were not punishments. They were pieces of a much larger picture, one that has only just begun revealing itself. You have often wondered why certain people disappeared from your life without explanation. At the time, it felt cruel. You questioned your worth. You blamed yourself. You replayed conversations over and over, searching for mistakes that may never have existed. But what if those endings protected something too precious to arrive too early? What if every goodbye was secretly making room for one unforgettable hello? That possibility changes everything, but it is only the beginning, because your soulmate has been fighting a battle you could never see. While you questioned whether anyone truly understood your heart, they were asking themselves the exact same question. While you wondered why love seemed delayed, they were learning painful lessons they never wanted to learn. Every heartbreak they experienced carved away fear. Every disappointment stripped away pride. Every lonely night slowly transformed them into the person capable of loving you completely. neither of you realized your separate journeys were quietly moving toward the exact same destination, and destiny was growing impatient. Then something happened. It was not planned, it was not rehearsed, it was certainly not something anyone expected. The room was filled with conversations. Laughter echoed from every direction. Faces blended together like ordinary moments always do. No one suspected that within seconds, everything would change forever. Even your soulmate believed they would remain silent one more time, until one unexpected moment shattered every wall they had built around their heart. Someone mentioned your name, just casually, just another conversation, just another passing sentence, but to your soulmate, it felt like lightning striking every hidden emotion they had been desperately trying to control. Their breathing changed. Their heartbeat raced. Memories flooded back faster than reason could stop them. Every smile you ever shared. Every goodbye. Every missed opportunity. Every unanswered question, it all returned at once, and then, without warning, they stood up. The entire room became strangely quiet. No one understood why. Eyes turned toward them, conversations stopped, time itself seemed to hesitate, even they looked surprised by what was happening inside them, as if their own soul had taken control before their mind could object. For one impossible moment, fear battled love, and love refused to lose. Then it happened. The words exploded from their heart before they could pull them back. I love them, not whispered, not hidden, not disguised. They said it loudly enough for everyone to hear. The room froze. Some people stared in disbelief. Others exchanged confused looks. A few smiled because they recognized something beautiful unfolding in front of them. But your soulmate was no longer aware of anyone watching. Years of silence had broken apart in a single sentence, yet they were far from finished. Tears filled their eyes, not tears of weakness, tears of release, the kind that appear when carrying the truth becomes more painful than revealing it. Every emotion they buried came rushing out without permission. They admitted they had tried forgetting you. They admitted they had pretended not to care. They admitted they had convinced themselves you deserved someone better, but their heart refused every lie, because every path they chose somehow circled back to you. The room remained silent. No one laughed. No one interrupted. No one expected such raw honesty to appear so suddenly. For the first time in a very long time, your soulmate stopped performing for the world and started speaking directly from the deepest place inside their soul. Yet something unexpected happened next. An older woman quietly stood. She walked closer. Without saying a single word, she placed her hand gently on your soulmate's shoulder. Then she smiled. Not because everything was simple, but because she recognized something few people ever witness. The moment fear finally surrendered to love, she whispered something so softly that only your soulmate heard it. 3 words, 3 simple words. Go find them. Those words echoed louder than every confession that came before them, because suddenly every excuse lost its power. Distance no longer mattered. Timing no longer mattered. Pride no longer mattered. The only thing left was truth, and truth has a way of demanding action, even when the future remains uncertain. At that exact moment, something shifted inside you too. You may not have understood why. Maybe your heart suddenly felt unusually restless. Maybe you looked toward the window for no reason. Maybe you felt tears forming without understanding their source. Invisible connections rarely announce themselves logically. Sometimes your soul recognizes something before your mind ever can, and yours had already begun listening. Still, destiny is rarely that simple, because just as your soulmate decided they would finally come looking for you, someone stepped into their path. Not an enemy, not a stranger, someone from their past, someone carrying unfinished stories, old wounds reopened, old fears resurfaced, questions they believed were finally answered suddenly became uncertain again. For a brief moment, it looked as though history might repeat itself. Your soulmate stood between two versions of life, the safe path, or the true one. Most people choose safety, most people return to familiarity, most people silence their hearts one final time, but something extraordinary had awakened inside them, something impossible to ignore. They remembered your smile. They remembered the peace they only ever felt when thinking about you. They remembered that genuine love never disappears simply because life becomes difficult, and with that realization, they made a choice that shocked everyone watching. They turned around. They walked away from everything comfortable. Every familiar voice calling them back became quieter with each step forward. They chose uncertainty. They chose faith. Most importantly, they chose you. But destiny always saves its greatest surprise for the moment you think the story is becoming predictable, because while your soulmate was finally making their way toward you, you were standing on the edge of making a life-changing decision of your own, a decision that could either bring both of your paths together, or separate them for longer than either of you could imagine. You have no idea how close the two of you truly are, closer than yesterday, closer than last week, closer than every year spent wondering whether this connection was real. The distance between you is shrinking, the silence is breaking. The truth is rising, the universe seems to be holding its breath, waiting for one final moment that neither of you can yet see, and somewhere, right now, your soulmate is carrying one last secret they have not confessed to anyone, not to their family, not to their closest friends, not even to themselves completely, because the moment they finally speak those hidden words, everything you thought you knew about your connection will change forever. And that moment could arrive much sooner than you ever expected. You can almost feel it now, not with your eyes, not with your hands, but somewhere deep inside your spirit, something refuses to stay asleep. It has been growing stronger with every sunrise, with every quiet night, with every moment you thought nothing was changing. You believed life had become ordinary, but beneath the surface, invisible pieces have been moving into place with breathtaking precision, and you still haven't seen the most astonishing part. Your soulmate has not stopped thinking about that day. The confession still echoes in their mind. Every face in the room, every heartbeat, every tear, every second after those words escaped their lips, they replay it over and over, wondering if they revealed too much, wondering if they waited too long, wondering if somehow the universe had finally decided enough silence was enough. But every time doubt tries to creep back into their heart, Another feeling rises even stronger, hope, a hope they haven't felt in years, because after carrying love like a hidden weight for so long, speaking the truth felt like breathing after being underwater. For the first time, they were no longer hiding from their own heart, yet someone unexpected would soon confirm everything they never dared believe. Later that evening, as the crowd slowly disappeared and the lights grew dim, someone quietly approached them. It wasn't the person they expected. It wasn't a close friend. It wasn't someone who knew every detail of their story. It was someone who had been watching from a distance for much longer than anyone realized. The stranger smiled gently before saying something that made your soulmate freeze. "I've never seen anyone say a name with that much love." Those words struck deeper than they appeared, because in that simple sentence, your soulmate realized something they had spent years denying. Real love cannot be hidden forever, no matter how carefully you bury it, no matter how convincingly you pretend. Eventually, the truth finds its own voice, and once it speaks, there is no returning to silence. But another discovery was already waiting. That same night, sleep refused to come. They closed their eyes, but your face kept appearing, not as a distant memory, not as an old photograph. You felt incredibly close, so close that it almost seemed impossible you weren't standing beside them. Then something happened that they still cannot fully explain. In the middle of the night, they woke up suddenly. The room was completely silent, yet their heart was racing as if someone had just called their name. They looked around. No one was there. The window was still. The air was calm. But deep inside, they knew they hadn't imagined it. Something had reached them. Something beyond logic, something beyond distance, and in that mysterious silence, they whispered your name once again, believing somehow, somewhere, your soul would hear it. At almost the very same moment, you felt an unexplainable pull. Perhaps you stopped what you were doing for no reason, perhaps you stared into the distance. Perhaps an old memory appeared without warning, bringing emotions you thought had long disappeared. You couldn't explain why your heart suddenly felt heavier. You couldn't explain why hope quietly returned after so much uncertainty. But your soul doesn't always need explanations. Sometimes it simply recognizes another soul calling for it, and yours had already begun answering, even before your mind understood why. The days that followed became stranger. Little signs appeared everywhere. A familiar song played in unexpected places. A forgotten photograph suddenly resurfaced. Someone mentioned love in a conversation that had nothing to do with relationships. Even the smallest moments seemed to carry hidden meaning. At first, you dismissed them. You told yourself you were imagining things. You tried to convince yourself they were only coincidences. But the signs refused to stop. Each one became louder than the last. Each one pointed toward a future you never expected, as if the universe itself had grown tired of whispering, and was preparing to speak clearly. Meanwhile, your soulmate made a decision that terrified them. They gathered every ounce of courage they had left. They searched through old messages, old memories, old places, anything that could somehow lead them back to you. Their hands trembled, not because they feared rejection, but because they feared being too late. That single fear became louder than every other thought. What if they have already moved on? The question haunted every step they took. It followed them through every quiet morning, every lonely evening, every sleepless night. Yet another voice answered from deep within, "If you never try, you'll never know." And that voice became impossible to ignore. One morning, they stood in front of a mirror. For a long moment, they simply stared at their reflection. They barely recognized the person looking back, not because their appearance had changed, because their heart had. The fear that once controlled every decision was slowly disappearing. In its place stood someone transformed by truth. Someone willing to risk everything for one chance, one conversation, one meeting, one moment that could change both of your lives forever. They smiled softly, not because the journey would be easy, but because they finally understood something destiny had been trying to teach them all along. Love was never asking them to be fearless. It was asking them to move forward despite the fear. And with that realization, they reached for something they had carried with them for years, a small keepsake, something connected to you, something no one else knew they still possessed. They held it tightly and whispered, "If this love is real, lead me." The silence that followed felt endless. Then, without warning, their phone vibrated. One notification, one message, one name. It wasn't yours, but the words on the screen mentioned you in a way that made every breath stop. Their heart pounded so hard they could barely read the message a second time, because whoever sent it knew something. Something about you. Something about where your life was heading. Something that could either bring the two of you together, or reveal a truth so shocking that neither of you would ever see love the same way again. And just as they reached out to open that message, the screen suddenly went black. For one endless second, it felt as though time itself had stopped breathing. The screen was dark, no sound, no notification, no explanation. Your soulmate pressed the power button once. Nothing. They tried again, holding it a little longer, hoping the light would return, hoping the message would still be there waiting for them. But the phone remained silent, as though the universe had deliberately placed one final pause between them and the answer they had been chasing for so long. And that silence carried a meaning they could not yet understand. Their first instinct was panic. What if I've missed my chance? The thought arrived without warning. It wrapped itself around every hope they had carefully rebuilt. Their heart raced as hundreds of possibilities flooded their mind. Was the message important? Had someone finally reached out on your behalf? Had destiny knocked only for them to miss opening the door? Questions became louder than certainty. Yet somewhere beneath the fear, another voice whispered with unexpected calm, "If something is meant for you, it will not disappear." Those words settled into their spirit like sunlight breaking through heavy clouds. They took a slow breath, closed their eyes, and chose not to surrender to fear. They had spent too many years letting fear make every important decision, and this time would be different. While they searched for a charger, something remarkable was happening in your own life. You didn't know why you suddenly felt drawn toward an old place. Perhaps it was a quiet park, perhaps it was a familiar street, perhaps it was somewhere you hadn't visited in years. There was no logical reason to go. Your schedule said no, your mind said no, but your heart kept pulling you in one direction, as though invisible hands were gently guiding every step. You almost ignored the feeling, but something inside refused to let you turn back. As you walked, memories surfaced without permission, not painful memories, not perfect ones, real memories, the kind that stay hidden until your soul is finally ready to understand them. You remembered moments that once seemed ordinary but now carried a completely different meaning. Small conversations, quiet smiles, brief glances that lasted only seconds but somehow remained unforgettable. You began wondering if love had been speaking to you long before you learned how to listen, and that question refused to leave your heart. At that exact moment, your soulmate finally managed to power the phone back on. The screen flickered, their hands trembled, every second felt impossibly long. Then the notification returned. The message was still there. Relief washed over them, but it lasted only a heartbeat. Before curiosity took its place, they opened it. The words were simple, far too simple for the emotions they awakened. I saw them today. Nothing more, no explanation. No location, no details, just 5 words. 5 ordinary words that carried extraordinary weight. Your soulmate stared at the screen, reading them again and again. I saw them today. Who sent it? Where had they seen you? Were you happy? Were you alone? Were you searching for them without even realizing it? Every question multiplied into another mystery. Yet one thing became unmistakably clear. You were no longer just a memory. You were real. You were close, closer than they had allowed themselves to believe. Their heartbeat became almost impossible to control. Then another message appeared. They looked different, again, no explanation. Different how? Had life changed you? Had pain transformed you, or had hope quietly begun shining through your eyes again? Your soulmate wanted answers more than ever before, but the sender remained strangely silent after that. It was as if someone had intentionally revealed only enough to awaken courage while hiding everything else, and that mystery became